this Environmental Services Committee meeting on the 4th of December here in the Town Hall in Enniskillen. We're joined by members in the Chamber, and we also have Councillor Debbie Coyle and Councillor Bernard McGrath on WebEx. If you can put on your cameras, please. Okay, so we'll move on to the first item on the agenda, apologies, and I have an apology for Councillor McClory. Do we have any other apologies? Councillor Maguire?
Councillor Fitzgerald, unless she joins online, Chair, but I believe it's an apology.
Okay, thank you. No other apologies? Okay, move on to the next item, number 2, to sign the minutes and confidential minutes of previous meeting held on the 6th of November 2024, and that was done before we started. Item 3, any declarations of interest? Nobody indicating, so move on. Now, reports for decision. Environment and Place Director reports 4.1 to consider report on the state matters, and that's to you, John. Yeah, and just to note that Councillor Fitzgerald has joined us on WebEx.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the monthly Estates Matters report. A number of items for decision is set out in section 2 and a number of items in section 3 for information. So the first of those, 2.1, is in respect of bus shelters. Council has 2 bus shelters that were previously provided in terms of our the bus shelter policy for school children, and we've been approached by TransLink in respect of 2 of those at Fort Hill Street in Enniskillen and Brownhill Link in Irvinstown, indicating that they would wish to take on responsibility for the maintenance and liability of both of those bus shelters, and it's recommended that we progress a legal agreement with TransLink in that regard. At section 2.2 then, a number of requests for use of council property. The first of those is in respect of the Omagh Memorial Garden on the 14th of December. A request from Variety, the Children's Charity of Ireland, permission to use Omagh Memorial Gardens for a presentation ceremony for a number of mobility tricycles to 12 special schools from within Northern Ireland and Ireland, and those schools will be coming up to receive their trikes on the 14th of December. On 2.2 then, Strood Shared Education Campus, permission to use a pavement area in Market Street for a carol singing event on the 16th of December. And then 2 requests for retrospective approval from BBC for filming at Enniskillen Workhouse on the 29th of November, and Bauer Media Group for who used Marble Arcades for filming on the 15th of November. Moving on to section 3 of the report, a number of matters for information. First of these is from the Department for Infrastructure, who have been in touch to advise that they intend to carry out some improvement works to a section of footpath on High Street in Omagh, from the courthouse down to Strood House on both sides of the road. Both sections of footpath have been identified as being severely affected in terms of skid resistance. So during the week commencing 2nd of December, sorry, there's a typo there. It should be it's during it's the week of the 9th of December that DFI are intending to do works over a period of a week at night time, and we've been since advised that that will be between 10 p.m. at night and 6 a.m. in the morning to minimise any disruption on businesses in the town centre, and involve the use of mobile plant for shot blasting sections of the footpath to improve the skid resistance. At 3.2 then, members will recall that Council has approved entering into a nominal 99-year lease of land at Crawford's Lane with Dromore and Dimpness GFC, and in anticipation of the completion of those lease formalities, the club has advised that it intends to apply for grant aid for proposed newly drained sand carpet based pitch at Crawford's Lane, Dromore, and therefore requesting Council approval as the landlord to progress that application. So it's recommended that approval will be given in that respect. And then at 3.3, request for use of a number of council facilities by Jehovah's Witness in Omagh Leisure Centre, and then the Hope Reformed Church in Wellington Car Park, and then a number of documents for sealing at 3.4, and again in respect of lands that have previously been brought to Environment and Services. So recommendations, members, set out in section 9 of the report that 9.1 that council approves entering into an appropriate legal agreement with TransLink in respect to the replacement of bus shelters at Fort Hill in Enniskillen and Brown Hill Link, Irvinstown. That approves the use of council property at the Memorial Garden for a presentation of mobility trikes on the 14th of December, and the use of the pavement at Market Street in Oma for a carol singing event on the 16th of December, and then retrospectively the use of council property at Enniskillen Workhouse and the Marble Arch Caves on the dates noted in the report. And then at 9.2, the council notes the updates that are set out within the report.
Thank you for that, John. First up, Councillor Fitzgerald on WebEx, please. You're just on mute there, sorry.
Yes, thanks a lot, John, for your report. Thanks, Chair, for letting me in. Just I want to propose the approval of the recommendations. And just on that Oma Town one, I know myself and my party colleagues have been working very hard on that. And whenever I was town councillor, it was the first meeting that Daniel Healy, the boss man from road service in our area, was the first meeting that he had attended that. So it's been quite a long time waiting, but it is a dangerous hill that there, and a lot of people has fallen on that. So it'll be good to get it done before the really bad weather comes up. So yeah, I want to approve the recommendations.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Debbie Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, and I'll second it. John, I just wanted to ask, I've been asked by people in Cavanagh about a bus stop at the top of Sycamore Drive. There used to be one there years ago, but it's been taken away and never replaced. And, you know, there'd be quite a few kids at the top of the hill and top of Beach Hill and also Cavendale that use that. And even if all those kids and their parents walked to the only bus shelter at the bottom of Sycamore Drive, so they wouldn't all fit in it anyway. So I have been asked, so what's the best way of requesting that? Is that through the council or direct to TransLink?
Councillor, I'm happy that I'll pick up the details with you after the meeting, but in broad terms, there's a process where we can request a councillor, and indeed any individual elected member or resident can request a bus stop within a town or within the settlement area, and there's an application process there for TransLink, so we can share that information with yourself, and then to be sharing onward with any of the residents within Cavanagh on Sycamore Drive. There's also then a council policy in terms of the provision of bus shelters for school children travelling to and from school in rural areas. So again, there's the policies on the council's website in respect of that policy for the provision of council provided bus shelters. But as I said, those are specifically for educational journeys for children travelling to and from school. If the bus shelter in question was a TransLink, maybe something that would pick up in the first instance with TransLink.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll sort it out with you after anyway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. So that's been proposed by Councillor Fitzgerald and second by Councillor Coyle, and we all agreed. Yeah, thank you. Now moving on to the next item. 4.2 to consider report on consultations, paper B, and that's John again.
Okay, members and Chair, thank you for this. It's and apologies in advance. I know there was a lot of heavy reading in this report. We've had 5 consultations referred onto the committee tonight, coming from really 2 government departments, Department for Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, and from Department for the Economy. The council powers were sought and granted last night at the council meeting to approve all of these responses. And as you'll note from the background section, some of these closing dates are imminent. The first of them indeed is the 9th of December, so at the start of next week, and then the rest of them are falling due during the month of December. And indeed the 5th one, the Just Transition Commission, is on the 13th of January, but we just felt that was too close to the council meeting cycle in January to leave it to that time, just with all of the other business that will be going on. So I said the 5 consultations that are out at the minute, the first is from Department for the Economy, and it's support for a low carbon heat in the residential sector. The next then is also from DFE, and that's for design plan for the rollout of smart electricity meters. Thirdly, then the Seabird Conservation Strategy and Action Plan for Northern Ireland, and that's from DAERA. Also from DAERA, then the Draft Environmental Principles Policy Statement for Northern Ireland. And finally, from DAERA, the consultation on the establishment of a Just Transition Commission. The cover paper sets out, I suppose, each of the key issues in respect of each of those consultations, and the draft responses have been attached in appendices 1 to 5 members. So I wasn't proposing to go through the detail of it. I presume people have had a chance to read them, but if there's any comments or queries on it, then happy to take those. But other than that, the recommendation would be the council notes the contents of the report and then considers and approves the appendices 1 to 5 are submitted as the council's response to each of the respective consultations in advance of the closing dates as noted within the paper.
Thank you, John. Is nobody indicating? Could I get a proposer and seconder? Proposed by Councillor Elliott, second by Councillor Brown. We're all agreed? Thank you. Now moving on to item 4.3, to consider report of the Director of Environment Place Paper C. See you again, John.
Thank you, Chair. So, Chair, a number of, one matter for decision in this and a number of matters really for information for members. The first is really on a governance point. Members will be aware that in April of this year, Council approved the establishment of the Members Waste and Recycling Working Group, and while that working group has worked through its processes over the course of the last 6 months, and indeed there was a report submitted to Environment and Services Committee in October of this year, which was ratified at Council last month, and the outworkings of that are now being taken forward during the estimates process, and there is detailed at paragraph 2.1.3. The terms of reference within the working group defined it as really, I suppose, a task, a task-focused group that would wind up by the 31st of December. I think given just the substantive nature of some of the recommendations that are coming from the report, and it's now recommended that the time frame for the working group would be extended to the 30th of June. That's to allow, I suppose, any more consideration through the estimates process for the recommendations that the working group previously made, but then also to look at the implementation of those recommendations as we move into the 25-26 financial year. So, because that is a change to the terms of reference, really it's recommended for approval, and obviously that will go to Council next month. And then at section 3, an update on really for information on first point is in terms of household recycling centres. So we're conscious over the last 18 months there has been some concern expressed regarding unscheduled changes to opening hours across the council's network of household recycling centres. Just an update there in terms of this below, but as we've noted that council had a network of 15 household recycling centres, equivalent to 1 per every 8,345 residents, and then just some benchmarking data there in terms of other district council areas across Northern Ireland. Again, some information in section 3.1.3 in terms of the percentages of waste that are collected through those household recycling centres, and then we also started to look at the opening hours that each of those sites is available on the course of a normal weekly basis. So I say really just it's for information. I suppose the key metric maybe taken out of it is around the service reliability, which in the last, so far this year, it's run at 95%, which has been an improvement on the service reliability from 12 months ago when it was just over the 90%. And obviously the 95% is a base that then we're intending and continuing to work to improve as well. 3.2, an update on the deposit return scheme. There was an announcement from the UK government via DEFRA on the 19th of November, where they and the counterparts in the Scottish Government and DAERA in Northern Ireland reaffirmed their commitment to bring forward a DRS in Northern Ireland in October 2027. Members will be familiar with the similar scheme that was introduced in Ireland at the start of this year, and by all accounts has been very successful. The DRS is a money-back scheme for single-use drinks containers and incentivises people to recycle their drinks bottles and cans and to redeem their deposits. It's expected to increase high-quality recycling and also reduce littering. Has a 90% return target for drinks containers, and say just some of the technical information as to the types of materials that would be included within the scope of the programme in Northern Ireland when it goes live in October 2027. It complements other work that's being taken forward by DAERA and by DEFRA in England around extended producer responsibility, which will mean that packaging producers are responsible for providing or covering some of the costs associated with the recycling and disposing of the packaging which they have previously put onto the market. And taken together, both of those initiatives will drive higher collection and recycling rates for packaging, and the EPR scheme will also include materials that aren't included within DRS, such as glass, cartons, and the high-density plastics for the likes of milk products. And then finally, at 3.3, just an update on some of the discussions that have been had previously at Environment Services and also at council meetings in respect of a request from a member that we explore the option for some additional off-street car parking spaces in Omagh in December 2024. So we have taken that forward in conjunction with representatives from Omagh Chamber of Commerce, had contacted two potential site operators, Southwest College and then the County Hall site, which is operated by the Department of Finance. DOF Properties Division have advised that regrettably County Hall isn't available outside working hours, so they can't support that request. Southwest College have responded that they were open to discussions, and as noted within the paper, we had the first of those meetings with representatives from Southwest College last Friday. They were very supportive of the proposal and have indicated certainly that the car park in Omagh at the college grounds will be available. We'll have a further meeting tomorrow just to tie down the exact dates. We are hopeful that it will commence potentially this weekend, but certainly by the 14th of December, and tying in with other initiatives that the staff and students and the college would hope to get involved with as well. And certainly the indication from the college at this stage would be that they would make the car park available free of charge, but staff and students, as part of just citizenship and charitable giving, would also be minded to take up a voluntary donations at different points during the course of the car park and being available. As I said, we are meeting tomorrow and hope to agree some final comms and get that publicised via the Omagh Chamber of Commerce website, the college's website, and also our own website. So members' recommendations set out in Section 9 that Council approves an extension of terms of reference for the Members' Waste and Recycling Working Group to the 30th of June 2025, and that note the updates provided in respect of service provision at HRCs, the planned introduction of the deposit return scheme in 2027, and the provision of additional off-street car parking in Omagh in December 2024.
Thank you, John. Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I'm just happy to propose the recommendations. Just with regard to the household recycling centres, the Lisbon site, obviously with its closure, has there been any issues in the area with regard to dumping, sort of fly tipping or anything like that since this has happened? And as I say, obviously there's a wee bit of work going on there with regard to where we go from here. So again, I look forward to further reports coming in the future on that. But with regard to with fly tipping or that, has there been any increase or any reports of that in the area? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Minder, John.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we're 3 weeks on, no longer, from the closure, 6 weeks on. I know there there was a couple of instances when people who weren't aware of the site closure in the first couple of days after the closure notices went up, those were cleared within 48 hours of the reports and the materials. And indeed, I know our staff who were working in the area were able to engage and then educate people about the alternative provision. And I'm not aware of any sustained or ongoing upturn in fly tipping within the area. And I say, obviously, we continue to have the village orderly services operating and their own street cleansing staff then working across the district as well.
Thank you, John. Councillor Feely?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks for that, John. Yeah, happy second that proposal there, or the recommendation. No, it's just about the HRCs as well, and that's good that there's no fly tipping going on around this block. I always be afraid of that when the HRC closes down. I see the equivalent here is we've one per 8,345 residents. When you look at the other ones, it's one per roughly around the 13,000. I know we're a wee bit lower there, but we have a bigger area to cover than some of them other districts, so I'd just be hoping that it'll not do us any harm in any way. Just want to make that point, you know. I'm happy to second the proposal.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Feely. So that's been proposed by Councillor Elliott and seconded by Councillor Feely, and we're all agreed. Thank you. Right, on to item 5, Community and Wellbeing Director Report 5.1 to consider report on street naming and numbering paper D. And that's you, John.
Thank you, Chair. The first report here is in relation to street naming and numbering, or street naming at the retail development in the Kilmaccormick Road, Cornergrade Road. Members will remember that we brought this one through a number of months ago. We've been back and speaking with the developer. It is in the town lands of Kilmaccormick and Drumcoo. The developer has suggested the name Kilcoo Road. Feel that it does meet the policy. And so therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the Council approves the name Kilcoo Road for the proposed new development and request the developer erects the signage as such. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. There's nobody indicating. Could I get a proposer and seconder? Councillor Maguire and Councillor Brough. We're all agreed. Thank you. Okay, now item 5.2 to consider report on street naming and numbering June language. And I take it, members, we've all read the report, so could I just go straight to proposer and seconder for the report? Proposed by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor McColligan. And obviously, I will note the dissent from the DUP and the UUP. Okay, we're all agreed. Thank you. Now on to report for information, Community and Wellbeing Director report to note report on dog control service update paper F. Yes, you, John.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Chair, members will remember brought up a report through on this and the imposing legislation in June of this year, which required XL bullies or XL bully owners to appropriately record and account for their dog with councils. The legislation effectively makes it illegal to own an XL bully type dog after the 31st of December this year, unless the owner has applied for an exemption certificate. And we have 10 registered XL bully type dogs in the Fermanagh and Omagh district. If they're not registered, it will be illegal to have those dogs, and it does require the council to seize those dogs after the 1st of January. We are currently working with the department in relation for further guidance in relation to the seizure of those animals. In our own district, out of the 10 that XL bully type dogs that we have, 3 of the owners have applied for an exemption certificate. So we have 7 remaining, and we are in continual contact with those 7 owners in order to try and ensure that they are fully compliant. There is difficulty, I suppose, in the time scales that are imposed here. In GB, there is the legislation allows for the enforcement authority to issue an interim exemption certificate to avoid the need for seizure of the XL bullies if certain conditions are met. that legislative provision isn't in the Northern Ireland legislation, and it may result in councils incurring large kennelling costs until the court's judgments are made in each case. And whilst the report is here for noting, members may feel it appropriate to write to the department to ask for the introduction of similar powers for the introduction of interim exemption certificates, so to extend the date for owners to apply for the exemption certificate. There is a risk also of the costs that are associated with kenneling of these dogs come the 1st of January. Within our own kenneling facility at Glassmulla, we have only one pen that could house an XL Poly type dog because of the security and the safety that is required in order to manage them. Our animal welfare care and collection provider have said that they would have the ability to take those dogs, but it would be at a cost of £25 per day. You can only imagine that if we seize the dog and the legal implications that could follow from the dog owners in relation to try and ensure that their dog isn't put to sleep and so on. And you can imagine that could go on for months. In fact, our experience in the past in such cases has that it could go on for months. So there is a potential for quite significant costs, and I've included it there in 3.1, that the cost per dog could equate to somewhere in the region of £5,000 per animal. If it took somewhere in the region of 200 days in order to get the legals sorted out. And again, whilst the report is only for noting, members may feel it appropriate to write to the department to seek additional funding for councils should the XL Bully type dogs be required to be seized and kennelled whilst court orders are being processed. So therefore, Chair, it's recommended that the Council notes the update report on the implications for Council following the new safety measures in respect of XL Bully type breed dogs introduced by the legislation earlier this year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to propose to go with the recommendations there. There is, I can see that there is only 10 of these dogs in the district, which is not a big number, I suppose, in the grand scheme of things. But we've got 3 people who have applied for exemptions. So first question would be, what would be the grounds for an exemption? If you could give some clarity on that. And the second point, I suppose, then there's 7 other cases there where the council is in dialogue with those people. But it's not going to be an easy dialogue, because when people are dog owners, they care very deeply about the dogs and won't take very much joy from being pressured into having to maybe dispose of the dogs. So this could get very messy, and it could get very protracted and very costly. So we need to be cognizant of that. What's the sort of, if you have any sense at all about how this is going to go, if you were able to see the future, are any of the people that we're talking at the minute thinking about the consequences or what they're going to do, or are they batten down the hatches now for a fight? Is that what people are getting ready to do? So if you could give any indication around that. And I fully agree with your suggestions there, John, about asking for additional funding should this get into a real legal mess. So I would propose again that we would write the letter that John suggested there. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come in there before?
Yeah. Chair, just in relation to what is required in order to obtain the exemption certificate, one, they have to register and make themselves known that they have an XL Bully type dog, that their dogs are neutered, although they have, or that they would plan to neuter their dogs. They have, I think it is until June of next year to formally undertake that process. And indeed, the neutering of a dog is actually in some cases seen to be a reason why owners aren't coming forward because of the cost that is associated with the neutering of the dog. Because you imagine some of these dogs are very large, and the neutering of a dog depends on the size, actually on the size of the dog and the cost that is associated with that. They have to undertake that their dog is muzzled and on a lead at all times when in public places, and also because of the neutering, they have to sign up that breeding will be prohibited, along with selling or giving away or abandoning the XL bully type dogs. So there are quite strict implications. At this stage, it is a certificate to say here, I agree to sign up to all of these implications in relation to the legislation. With regard to the second element of your question, Councillor, what's the general feeling? We are working with the 7 owners. You know, there are house calls and so on and so forth. It's hard to say. You know, I don't think anyone has specifically said no. I'm not going to obtain an exemption certificate, and so therefore that approach, like, you know, of trying to convince them that this is the legislation and this is the right thing to do, is what officers will be doing at this point in time between now and the 31st of December. I would imagine we could have another few that will be registered, but I think throughout the region, I think every council is fine. And like you say, we have only 10 dogs. I think there are 335 across Northern Ireland in total. And all councils are finding that the uptake of the obtaining an exemption certificate is very, very low. And it is going to hit other councils greater than ours. So I think the need for this interim exemption certificate is actually a good idea. It was missed or whatever in the legislation here, and maybe it is a little late to be asking for that now, but it may be something that would help owners and give them an extra little bit of time in order to ensure that they get an exemption certificate.
Thank you, John. Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There was just to clarify about the cost, and I don't recollect. You know, the funding has been stopped for DERA for the animal welfare for the councils. Do we have funding separate for this scheme, this particular scheme, or is?
No, we have received no funding in relation to this scheme, and that's why if members felt it appropriate that we should write and request additional funding in order to implement this scheme. The cost is not in relation to the giving out of the exemption certificates, but if we were to have to seize the dogs, then a cost becomes immediate.
Right, okay, thanks for that clarification. Well, I'd like to second Dermot's proposal then to write, request additional funding, and maybe to request to have that interim certificates as well, because this is, looks like it's not quite working, and anything that we can get it to work easier and for the council to work through it easier as well, I think would be a good idea. So I second Councillor
And
Brown's
you're
proposal.
also happy just to note as well. Just to
Yes,
keep it
sorry, yeah,
outright,
of course, yeah, I'll note it as well. Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Elliott.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and obviously we'd be in support of sending the letter looking for the funding. So if somebody applies for an exemption certificate then and is successful, that means that they're allowed to keep the dog in under certain conditions. Is that correct? So then you would think then that responsible dog owners that would have, you know, a love for their pet would be coming forward, I would have thought, to try and keep their pet. So I would be actually concerned then if owners that weren't coming forward, you know, with regard to the whole scheme of things, you know, sort of thing. So as I say, if you never know, maybe closer to the time, I know we're getting short in time, that these other people might come forward, but obviously I would like to see them come forward, sort of thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Okay, so that has been proposed by Councillor Brown, second by Councillor Hayes. Oh, sorry, Councillor Crawford.
So it's just a wee comment. Very interesting. Obviously, I'm a dog lover. Don't have a dog. But then again, you don't have to have a dog to be a dog lover. But besides the point, I'm just thinking, John, of what you have been saying. I wonder if we give a wee bit more leeway would that be helpful? As you were saying, it's something that you picked up in legislation a wee bit late. Is that something, or if I missed something there, have I? I know the rule is the end of this month, but
Yeah, legislation is the legislation.
so we have to go with
Yeah,
that.
the legislation is very clear.
It's just an interest of maybe keeping down the cost, you know, if it was a case that we could get more registered.
And I suppose that was the ethos of the interim
Yeah,
certificate. That
it was only a
was
thought, you know,
introduced in other
maybe
parts of
it's
the
a way of-
UK.
Helping people, you know.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Debbie Coyle on WebEx.
Thanks, Chair. Well, it's just a comment really, because what's coming down the road possibly regarding dogs and animal welfare is a little bit worrying, but we'll see anyway. But I'm just wondering if any of the council official, I know it's an all-party meeting tomorrow on animal welfare instalment and online. I can't go in person because I won't be on this island at 9 o'clock in the morning, but I'll be certainly joining online. And I just wondered if any of the, you know, and there's a presentation from the Dogs Trust and it's about animal welfare priorities. I just wondered if any of the council officials will also be on that. I will be, and I'm hoping to feed back anything that I learn in the morning anyway. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I commend John.
Chair, I'm not aware of anyone who is attending that. I know we have the launch of the anti-poverty strategy tomorrow morning. It's going to take up some of our officers' time, but I can certainly check to see if anyone is attending that.
Yeah, thank you, John. Okay, so that's proposed by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Hayes, and within that proposal of noting, also writing the letter, and we're all in agreement. Yeah, thank you. Now, item 7, correspondence. Over to you, John.
Okay, thank you, Chair. First item of correspondence here is from Michelle McElveen, MLA, and writes on the subject of proposed NAPI and absorbent waste collection and recycling scheme. So it's recommended that members note the correspondence, which provides detail on a scheme that's been discussed by Ards and North Down. Borough Council, the correspondence also makes reference to engagement that Ms McElveen's had with the Minister around a potential creation of an NAPI collection and recycling scheme for Northern Ireland, and notes the link to rethinking our resources. So as we're still waiting on the outcome of the Minister's and the Department's response to the consultation on rethinking our resources, it's proposed that at this stage that we simply note the correspondence and say we've already submitted the response to that consultation.
Thank you, John. Councillor Debbie Coyle on WebEx, or is that from previous?
Sorry, Chair, that's from the last time.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, nobody indicating. Could I get a proposed by Councillor Maguire, seconder by Councillor Bruff, and we're all agreed. Thank you. The next one, John.
Sure. Another piece of correspondence to note this time from Department for Infrastructure from the Rivers Directorate. It's to note the Executive's approval of the reservoir safety framework. The Executive approved primary legislation has now progressed in secondary legislation, and the Minister had made a statement to that effect in November time. I suppose essentially what the legislation allows the Department now to do is to first of all, enables reservoir managers to manage the safety of reservoirs, and that's anything that's a controlled reservoir, anything over 10,000 cubic meters. But it also will enable the department to develop grant schemes to help with any associated costs that may be necessary to bring those reservoirs up to safety standards. So again, just proposed to note, members.
Thank you, John. Proposer and second to note, please. Councillor Robinson and Councillor Brown. Thank you. Moving on to the next one, John.
Yeah, Chair. So this is just publication of the Drinking Water Inspectorate Water Quality Report for 2023. So again, proposed to note, members, there's a link in the correspondence to the report.
Thank you, John. Proposer and second to note, Councillor Crawford and Councillor McYardle. Thank you. And now on to, you can take these next two, 7.4 and 7.5 together. Is that all right?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Again, sorry, once again, to propose a note, it's correspondence from DFA, and it's just probably welcome this correspondence is ongoing work in terms of the progression of the A5 Western Transport Corridor. So this was just encouraging to see that there is still work going on with in the department with that sort of mindset of progressing and delivering the scheme. So it's just proposed a note the making of vesting order in both instances, one from Sand Mills to Oma.
Thank you, John. Proposer and seconder note both of them. Councillor Robinson and seconder by Councillor McColgan. Thank you. On to 7.6, John.
Sorry, Chair, just not flicking forward in my notes quickly enough. Sorry, this is in fact I think these. Oh, sorry. The next one is from Marston, who are the off-street car parks management enforcement service for the council's off-street car parks. So really just an update from them that their traffic attendants will now be wearing body cameras. I think actually they implemented the body cameras with their TAs from last week. I said there's a proposed wording that came from them in Appendix 1. It's for information. They're the TAs who would look after the on-street and have been responsible for on-street car park and have worn these body cameras for a number of years now. So this just regularizes the position for their off-street car parking staff at this point in time, and it has been circulated to all of the off-street car parking consortium members.
Thank you, John. Proposer and seconder, Councillor Elliott and Councillor Hawks. Thank you. And now 7.7, 7.8, you can take them together as well, John.
Yeah,
please.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, thank you. So I lost my place. Yeah, two proposals from DFA. Proposed extension to a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit on the Glenlevin Road in Derrygonley, and proposed extension of a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit on the Boyle Road in McGuire's Bridge. And again, the DFA just noted that the necessary consultations have taken place with PSNI, so proposed to note both of those.
Thank you, John. Councillor Feely.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, John. Yeah, I propose to note that, and I welcome that. For this, the one on the Glenlevin Road in Derrygonley had been lobbied a lot about that, getting that done. It's beside the football field there, and a lot of speeding going on, people going to training and rushing and stuff, and the residents around there was getting afraid. So just glad to see that done. So happy to propose.
Thank you, Councillor Feely. Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second that, both of those also, and the same as Councillor Feely, I'm happy to see that extension of the 30 miles an hour in Maguire's Bridge, because up that Boy Hill Road, again, there's quite a lot of speeding and there's quite a few residential properties along that road, so extending it will hopefully help slow the traffic down. So happy to second the noting.
Yeah, thank you. And now there's one additional, John, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, sorry, members. One additional item of correspondence that was just received on Monday, and that's in the other folder on decision time. So this is from Department for Infrastructure, and it's the proposed revocation of an historic disabled parking bay and parking and loading bay on the High Street in Oma, and it's noted within the correspondence that the bays and the loading bays are no longer in place due to the redesign of the road, and there were two additional car parking bays that were installed as part of that those works at that time. So the legislation should have been revoked when the High Street was redesigned some years ago. So this is really a housekeeping exercise from DFA. So again, proposed to note, members.
Thank you, John. Councillor Fitzgerald on WebEx.
Yes, I'm happy enough to note that, John. Yeah, I was sort of waiting on that there to come on a wee bit. I think that they're very good there, but can I come in and a wee supplementary just on the same area? John, the walking bridge from the bus depot across to Margaret Street, it had been sort of like renovated, upgraded, whatever the word may be, but the surface of it is still really, really slippy. There must be further work to be done to that there, is it? Because they were complaining of, I was just happened to, sorry, I didn't get asking you, Gavin, this evening, it was just at a meeting planners there earlier on, and somebody had said to me just that it's very slippy and the water gathers on it. That's the footbridge from the bus depot crossing to the Market Yard or Market Square.
Okay, want to come in there, John?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Certainly, I'm happy to pick that up with our staff. I know as the member notes, we had been doing some renovation work to the surface, and I think the final treatments were being applied in the last week or so. I suppose one of the things I suppose I would just notice that all of the surfaces have been applied to the necessary standards in terms of slip resistance. But I know one of the things that has been noticed that the finish of the surface can give the impression that they look that there's almost like a sheen of it, but that's the actual footpath itself, or the surface is not slippy. It has been tested and it does meet all of the necessary standards and all of the safety requirements. So while it may look, because of the sheen that comes off it, there isn't actually a slip risk. It's something that we have tested. But I say I'll pick it up with the relevant team just if there have been any concerns coming in.
Yeah, no, I did walk on it today and I had no issue with it. So I don't know if the water's lying on it whenever it's frost or something, but there has been a lot of skids on it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. That's
Thank you.
proposed by Councillor Fitzgerald. Could I get a seconder, Councillor Hawks? Okay, thank you. Yeah, item 8, any urgent relevant business? I received none, so we'll move on to part 2, confidential matters. Could I get a proposer and seconder, Councillor Brown and Councillor Crawford, to go into committee? on a recap.
Thank you, Chair. While in confidential business, members consider the confidential report on a number of estate matters and approve the course of action as set out within the paper in respect of both.
Thank you, John. Proposer and seconder for that. Councillor Bruff, Councillor McArdle. Thank you. That brings our meeting to a close. It's the last one before Christmas, so wish everybody a happy Christmas and look after yourselves. All right? It's handy enough, yeah.